Today is Tuesday, April the 2nd, 2024. Welcome to the Daily Article Podcast. Today's article is written by Dr. Jim Denison and narrated by Chris Elkins of the Denison Forum. The first section of the collapsed Francis Scott Key Bridge has been removed from the Patapsco River, and officials have opened a temporary shipping route around the wreckage. Meanwhile, we continue to learn more about those who survived the March 26th disaster. Larry DeSantis drove over the bridge every day for 16 years on his commute to his job at a Maryland bakery. Shortly after crossing over that morning, it collapsed. It makes me think, I'm really lucky, he said afterward. 1 minute later, I wouldn't be here. By contrast, the wife of a construction worker who survived the collapse said, "My husband doesn't know how to swim. It's a miracle he survived." Which was it? Luck or a miracle? And what about those who did not survive? Were they unlucky? Or did God not favor them as he did those he spared miraculously? We can ask our questions from a faith perspective that seeks to understand the biblical worldview better and communicate it more effectively, or we can ask them from a skeptical perspective that counts unexplained suffering as evidence against the Christian faith. Both sides see the same evidence, but come to very different conclusions. Choosing the right perspective is vital, not just for our personal flourishing, but also for our national future. N.S. Lyons is the pen name of an essayist working in the U.S. foreign policy community in Washington, D.C. He is the author of an article that appeared yesterday on Unheard, titled, "The Constitution Won't Save America. It Has Lost Touch with the Nation's Twisted Soul." Lyons makes this urgent argument. The U.S. Constitution's words were, quote, "an attempt to encapsulate the founders' expressions of the young Anglo-American nation's implicit, unwritten Constitution." By unwritten Constitution, Lyons means the unconscious, historically accumulated evidence of the nation's organic and fundamental collective character, its public spirit, way of life, and common understanding of authority and the moral laws of right and wrong. The document this unwritten Constitution produced was thus a map, a symbolic representation of a cultural and spiritual territory. As such, apart from this territory, Lyons states it has no more intrinsic power than any other piece of paper. In the generation since, Lyons writes, the spirit that governed the American people changed as they changed, and the corresponding unwritten Constitution withered away and was replaced by a new intrinsic Constitution. Tragically, the unwritten Constitution animating the American state today bears almost no resemblance at all to that preserved in the historic relic of the Constitution. End quote. This insight helps explain how Supreme Court justices, reflecting the shifting mores of the sexual revolution, came to discover rights to abortion and same-sex marriage in a document whose framers would have rejected both. It explains why a nation built upon a moral consensus grounded in the Judeo-Christian worldview could veer so far from its ideological roots while remaining governed, so to speak, by the document these roots produced. And it shows us the urgent need for a spiritual and moral movement to rebuild these foundations before the house upon which they were built is too far gone to be repaired. As Lyons writes, if we want to restore any substance to the Constitution, then what will be called for is nothing less than a sustained and determined national, cultural, intellectual, religious, and political counter-revolution sufficient to remold the very animating spirit of the state. Yesterday, I quoted Reverend Greg Laurie's response to the White House's proclamation recognizing the Transgender Day of Visibility on the same day as Easter. It's time to turn back to God, not turn our backs on God, Laurie said. He followed his statement with this prophetic declaration: we need to repent and pray for a spiritual awakening in America. It is our only hope. I could not agree more. As we noted on Easter Monday, the changed lives of Jesus' followers can be our most persuasive argument for the resurrection today. People in a post-truth culture can dismiss our facts and evidence as quote-unquote our truth, But they cannot dismiss the power of our changed lives. When they see the relevance of the risen Christ to us, they are drawn to his relevance for themselves. But here's the catch. To be the change we wish to see, you and I need the power of the risen Christ every day. We are called to be holy in 1 Peter 1 verse 16, but fallen people cannot become holy without the help of a holy God. Criminals cannot pardon themselves. Sinners cannot save themselves. Those in prison cannot free themselves. Lost people cannot direct themselves. The psalmist testified to God in Psalm 89 verse 9, "You rule the raging of the sea. When its waves rise, you still them." He continued in verses 15 through 17, "Blessed are the people who know the festal shout, who walk, O Lord, in the light of your face, who exult in your name all the day, and in your righteousness are exalted. For you are the glory of their strength, and by your favor our horn is exalted." And then from verse 18, we can say, "Our shield belongs to the Lord when our King is the Holy One of Israel." Who is your King today? The Denison Forum team is grateful for our daily article podcast subscribers. Please share the podcast with others. And for more news discerned differently, visit denisonforum.org.